Hello everybody and welcome to the second video of this series. So today we'll talk about scales. On the first video we actually talked about sharps and flats or accidentals. On this video I will show you how scales actually work and why this is the first scale you need to know and you need to master. Anyway, hello everybody and welcome to a new video and welcome to my channel where we talk about everything music from death metal to Queen and everything in between. So I'm sure you guys heard about scales and keys and stuff like that, but do you know how they work? Well, let me tell you something. A musical scale or a key in modern music typically consists of 7 different notes and then the octave. Octave, which I'm sure you've heard before, only means the 8th note of a scale. So, like I said on the previous video, music is cyclical, so it means that it starts over once it finishes. So, that being said, the 8th note really is the first one of the second round. So, let me show you what I mean. The first scale you really need to know is the C major scale, which is the mother of all the scales. If you were to play it on a piano, that would sound like this. All the white keys only, so yeah, no accidentals. Now if we actually go and dissect the scale, it looks like this: C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. See, we've got 7 notes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what is the 8th note? The 8th note would be another C, or the octave, and that is really just the first one again, just an octave higher. See what I mean? So every other scale that exists is some sort of variation of this scale, of the C major scale. So this is the mother of all of them. You can really get to any scale just by editing this scale in the right way. Obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that, but that is the truth. So of course, it'll take a couple of videos for you to actually understand and grasp that concept, but just know that that is a fact. Okay, so this is a scale. A scale is basically a set of notes in an ascending or descending order. On a C major scale, we actually go through all of the notes with no accidentals. So we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C. Now, every note is a degree. So this is the first degree, or the first note, second degree, the third degree, fourth, and so on. And then the distance between one note and the next is called an interval. Now that being said, there's actually a formula behind every scale that can actually be translated or transposed into a different key, any key really, and it'll give you the actual major scale for that root note. Now the first note or the first degree is also called the root note or the tonal note. So that is the most important note we actually have on a scale because it tells you what the key is. Now we have the second degree, the third degree, and the fifth degree. These are the most important notes on a scale because they also make out the triad, which is coming up very soon and is going to be very handy for you to understand scales and chords. Now remember, every time you're counting out notes, you have to think about the first note being the one note. Because a lot of times people start counting from the second one on. Like, let's say for instance, I would say, let's look at the third note and they'll go 1, 2, 3 because they assume they're already counting this one. But that's not the case. You have to count 1, 2, 3. Now typically in modern Western music, we actually have scales that are made out of 7 notes. But there's some rogue scales that are actually made out of 8 notes. But we'll talk about those later. And I'm sure you've heard about the pentatonic scale, which only has 5 notes. That actually is not a scale on its own. It's actually a summarized version of this scale, or any other scale. You typically have major scales and minor scales, and everything is just basically, a variation on that. So if we're looking at a pentatonic major scale, then it's a major scale, but only 5 notes out of the 7 notes are being played. And just so you know, if you actually want to play a C major pentatonic scale, you have to get rid of 2 notes, which are F and B. So you don't play these notes, this guy here and this guy here. You're obviously going to play the first, the third, and the fifth, because as I said before, those are the most important notes on the scale, but you actually do play the second degree, and you do play the 6th degree. You don't play the 7 or the 4. Alright, so I really hope that this is starting to make some sense. Now, if you listen to like jazz music or like progressive rock music from like the 60s and 70s, or like awesome bands like Queen, Jethro Tull, Pink Floyd, etc., and you try to figure out the chords, you'll see chords with numbers like second and ninth and seventh and stuff like that. That actually is based on this. So if you see like a 9 or a 13, then that means that they're actually on a second octave. So for instance, if we're playing a C second, the second note on a C would be D, right? Now if we want to play a C9, then we have to count it up. And obviously I already know that it's the same note, it's a D, but it's not the same D. It has to be one octave higher, so higher up in pitch. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. If we want to get to 13, 10, 11, 12, 13, that would be an A. Not the first time around, but the second time around, so it would be a higher A. Now last but not least, and just as an introduction to the next video, these 3 notes are so important because the first one obviously tells you what key we're in, then the third degree is going to tell us whether or not we're on a major or minor scale, and then the fifth is actually the same note on a minor or a major chord. It is the one that you always find on a power chord, right? So if we play a power chord, let's see, C, it's actually not a major or a minor chord, it's just a C fifth power chord. So that would be a C plus a G, right? Which is the fifth note. Or if we actually want to count it out, we have D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, and G. If you don't know that, watch the previous video. So that's it. C and G makes up, a power chord, a C fifth. Now, you're probably seeing this too, but that's the same power chord, which is technically not a chord, but we'll get to that later. And that is the octave being played. So now we have a C, a G, and another C. And if we want to get really technical about it and make it sound huge, then you can actually add another C or another G and make it sound even bigger. It's still the same chord, it just sounds bigger. So like if we add this G here, then we have 2 G's and 2 C's. Still a C chord, a C fifth, or a C power chord, but now we have a bottom G, which makes it sound heavy. We can also just go up and add this C to that, so it'll sound like this. Same thing, just 2 C's and 2 G's. And if we want to do the bottom G and the top G, then it sounds like this. That's nothing but a power chord, just with more notes. Imagine as if you're playing a piano with like 4 fingers on it. That's basically the same thing, or like 6 fingers on it rather. That's basically what it is. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please let me know if you did, and drop me a comment in the comment section down below with some questions. Drop me a like if you can, and of course, please subscribe to this channel like a man if you haven't yet. And if you really want to help the channel out big time, make sure you follow my Patreon. A little goes a long way, and we surely do appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Pat out, metal on, dudes.